In the last Marin video, you guys saw me compare the 2023 versus the 2022 Rift Zone 1. And those bikes are super similar, and there's just some subtle differences that could make the 2023 a little bit better. But I've yet to take this out on an actual official trail to really give it a test. And that's what we're gonna do today, so let's go ahead and let's hit up some of my local trails. Now this first trail system that I'm gonna take the Rift Zone to is gonna be more of an XC style trail. So this thing's gonna be pushed a little bit more on the climbs and the flowing single track. But it does have one downhill section that we're gonna hit up first. Now one of the first things I noticed right away whenever I entered this trail system is the beauty of the X-Fusion combination. I absolutely love the fact that the front fork and the rear shock are matching, and they feel like they work really well together. There's a lot of little rocky sections on this trail, some berms, and a few jumps. Now granted, I'm not the best jumper in the world, so I case just about every jump that I hit. The fact that I can case these jumps and this bike just keeps going means that this X-Fusion setup is working absolutely perfect. But on this bike, I feel like I could get a little bit better at jumping because it's definitely really nimble. There's something about this front end on this bike that makes it feel super light. And I think it could possibly be that X-Fusion fork. Now the crazy thing about this new Rift Zone is it's so fast that I actually tied my PR going down this trail from 2021. That's crazy. I haven't even gotten close to it over the past couple of years. And I jump on this bike and right away, I'm already tying my best time ever. Now being that this is an XC style trail, you know that there's gonna be some good climbs. Now this one right here is always the most tricky to me whenever it comes to riding up a switchback. I'm terrible at making right-hand turns going up a switchback. But with this new Rift Zone, I was able to make that turn and climb right up that hill with no problem. That giant cassette in the back really does help whenever you go climb up some of these steep hills. Now that I've been out here riding for a while, I definitely want to make sure that I stay fueled up. One way that I like to do that is with Honey Stinger brand snacks, and they make these awesome waffles. If you guys have never tried them, make sure you check them out. And then also they came out with these new oat and honey bars. These things are fantastic. These will give you the energy that you need to keep riding all day. And make sure you use the links below so you can pick some of these up for yourself. And if you use the coupon code RUNBikeMike20 before May 14th, you'll save an additional 20% off your very first order. So now that we've tested out the suspension and we've tested out the hill climbing ability, let's see how good this thing does flowing down some single track. And just like I thought, this thing is super nimble. It can weave right through the trees and all the way down these ribbons of trail. And the last test that I want to do out on this trail system is this final little drop. This drop is only about 3 feet, but it does land pretty hard typically. So we're gonna see if this suspension can actually absorb it really well. And there you go, the landing on that was probably the best feeling that I've ever had on any of the bikes that I've ridden. The extra travel that comes on this Rift Zone is definitely well worth it. Now I gotta say, I'm really surprised because I thought having this extra travel was gonna make this bike feel a little bit sluggish, but it doesn't. This bike actually feels really snappy and really responsive. Now last but not least, I wanna hit up my backyard trail and try out every feature that I currently have. After going through this trail system, I noticed one thing, and I knew this was gonna be a problem right from the start. Now, all the features in my backyard trail are a lot more fun to ride whenever you drop your seat. But this one doesn't have a dropper post installed. You have to manually drop it, and then whenever you wanna cruise down to the next feature, you have to stop and raise your seat back up. That's pretty inconvenient, especially whenever you're used to having a dropper post, so that's definitely something that I'm gonna be upgrading. And in fact, I went ahead and I picked one up. Let's head back to the garage and let's get this installed. So I picked up a factory renewed P&W dropper post. I got the 150mm dropper post and the P&W lever. Now if you want a Rift Zone with a dropper post pre-installed, you're gonna have to go with the Rift Zone 2 or the XR. Those are gonna cost you a little bit more. So if you don't wanna spend as much money as the Rift Zone 2 or the XR, you wanna stick with the good price point of the Rift Zone 1, but you're willing to spend a little bit more to get a dropper post, you can do what I did, buy the renewed dropper post from P&W with their lever, and you'll be right at about 200 bucks. Now you want to make sure whenever you go to shop for one of these seat posts that you get a 30.9mm seat post Now I did get a 150 millimeter dropper, but I feel like I could fit a 170. However, the 170s weren't on refurb at that particular time, so I went ahead and scooped up this 150, and I think it's gonna be absolutely perfect. Now, one thing I was a little surprised with is that there's no cable guides inside the frame. Whenever you open up the little port down at the bottom, you're gonna have to fish the cable housing out. Now, I don't have the special tools to route internal cable housing, so I just had to take my time and be really patient, and then eventually I was able to get the housing all the way through. Now, one of the things that I really appreciate about the 2023 model versus the 2022 is there's only one of these rubber grommets whenever you're running your internal cable housing. So now that we got the hard part done, running the cable housing, let's go ahead and let's finish this install. So there you go, the RiftZone 1 now has a dropper post installed on it and it's ready to go rip. Let's go ahead and let's test this out by taking it out to the drop-in.
Here we go. Yeah. Yes. Oh man, Marin, you make an awesome bike.
So that was the 2023 RiftZone 1 with the added dropper post going down the drop-in. There is something about this bike. Let's go back to the garage and let's talk about it. So now that I've ridden both the 2022 and the 2023 RiftZone, how do I like the 2023? Well, if it says anything, I contacted Marin and I asked him if I could buy this bike. I liked it that much. They said, go for it. So they wound up selling me the bike. And now I currently own the 2023 RiftZone 1. There's something about this bike, and I mentioned it earlier in this video. The front end on this bike just feels so playful. And I'm not really sure what it is exactly because these bikes weigh just about the exact same. They have the exact same head-to angle and the geometry is very, very close, just like we found out on the last video. But it definitely has this more playful vibe to it. And honestly, I can't tell if it's actually just a placebo effect where it's a brand new bike so it feels a lot more playful, or if there is really truly something to do with that X Fusion fork and that extra 10 millimeters of travel. Either way, I think this bike is fantastic. Whether you have a 2022 or a 2023, you can't go wrong. Marin makes a rock solid bike, and at this price point, it may be the best full suspension that you can pick up for yourself. Now, there is one thing that I ran into with the 2023, and it's not even that big of a deal. On the seat stays here, they seem to stick out just a little bit more than the 2022. And I have a tendency of turning my foot in. And I found out that after the ride, I kind of had this seat stay scuffed up a little bit from my shoe. It wasn't that big of a deal as it didn't affect my riding at all, but this makes me think that I should put on some protective film on this rear seat stay. I don't want this to get scuffed up or for the paint to be removed. So if you do pick up one of these new RiftZone 1s, you may want to watch out for that. Buy some protective film and put it in place. If you guys like the comparison between the 2023 and the 2022 RiftZone, you're going to want to stick around because I've got something that I want to show you. And that's this. This is the Polygon Siskiyou T7, which is the ultimate comparison to the RiftZone 1. You guys asked for a comparison. I contacted Bikes Online and they thought that that was a great idea. So they hooked me up with this T7 to do a review and a full comparison to the Rift Zone 1. So if you guys want to see this review and the comparison between the two bikes, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave me a comment, use my links below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.